What is up, everybody? I'm getting ready to head out on our annual fall trip, which is always based around the alt cycling event Nutmeg Nor'easter, which is one of these events that I absolutely love. It's kind of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2 nights of camping, and then Saturday will be the main event with a bunch of curated routes you could go and ride. There's nothing competitive about it. I mean, you could always go and be as competitive as you want, but it's basically just going out and having a good time. And we make brewery stops, and it's a mixed terrain ride of some rocky, gnarly, almost hiking trail stuff to some really pretty-ish New England country roads, dirt, gravel, everything in between. So as always for us, there will be a number of different kind of sub-trips within this trip. Nutmeg and Connecticut are a little far for us to head just for the weekend, so we always build a trip around it. So on the way out, we'll go most of the way. I think we're going to be in the Delaware Water Gap area, and that'll kind of be like a night of almost glamping. It's a TP thing we're staying in. I'm not sure if it's really heated or anything though, so probably not quite glamping. Then we'll go for a bike ride that evening on a bike trail we've never been to. So long as the weather's nice, we'll have a ride on that night. Then in the morning, we'll get up and head to Nutmeg and get set up there. We stay in lean-tos. So there's a bed with a little bit of like almost like those gym mat things, but it's open in the front. So you really do need the gear to be warm overnight, but you don't need the tent and all that kind of stuff, which is nice. So then on the Sunday, we are going to drive in Aaron's car to the Letchworth State Park area around Rochester. In the morning, Aaron is going to head home, and Ben and I are going to ride all the way back and do a credit card tour. Our route is over 360 miles and over 20,000 feet of elevation, and the weather is looking chilly and with times of rain. We're still about a week out, but that is the thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit. I find it's like harder to plan for this, even though I won't need all the camping gear on my bike, just the gear that I'm going to need to stay warm and reasonably dry if you can ever stay reasonably dry. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the term credit card tour, because I think it's something that probably started off as a term that was supposed to be disparaging. I think it's a term that we should own though, because you know what? Not everybody needs to sleep in a tent when they go on vacation. And I love it in the summer, but the things I like about camping are not the actual sleeping in a tent and lugging camping gear stuff. It's one, being at like a pretty park or a pretty campground where maybe you can go swimming and you have the bonfire and you have pretty views, and it's just like a cool, peaceful experience. I like that. I also like going on our summer trip. It makes it really affordable to camp all the time instead of staying in hotels or Airbnbs and stuff like that. And then just the flexibility of where you can stay between the different campgrounds, parks, private campgrounds. Hipcamp.com is a great resource for basically, it's the Airbnb of camping. So for me, those are the reasons I really like camping. And then in the summer, there's no issues with it usually, because even if it is going to be rainy or wet, it's usually going to be warm here because we do our summer trip in July. So for this trip, as me and Ben got together and started to plan the route and our stops, we just realized, let's try and get cheap motels and things like that. One, a lot of the campgrounds just happen to be closed now, and there wasn't as many options for camping. This could have been a stealth camping trip, but we decided not to go that route. The other thing is, with some of the mornings looking like they'll be high 30s, low 40s, the idea of rolling out of the tent and getting going, I know some of you are much tougher than me, and that's great. I like the idea of at least starting a little bit warm, especially if we're going to be descending down a mountain first thing in the morning and then, warming up throughout the day. The other thing is, like I said, just rain. So for me, these coldish days, being out there, if it's going to be in the 40s and raining all day, the idea of getting to a campground and having to set up a tent and crawl into a tent and try and get your stuff out when you've been cold and damp all day is not really appealing. So having a warm shower and having a chance to try and attempt to dry some of the stuff, I think is going to be the way to go for this trip. The last week in October, I'm going to be happy that we're staying inside these nights. And also it's 6 days of riding, so 5 nights. So this is not the longest bike tour in the world, but for this time of year, a reasonable amount. And long days, we have an 80 mile day with like 5,000 feet, I think. That's going to be very nice to roll in, find some dinner, and then hot shower, actual bed. So the bike of choice is the Gunnar. Nutmeg will be rough. There will be, like I mentioned, rocky, rooty stuff. So I want this for the event. Also, I don't mind touring on this bike. As I've mentioned before, I do really like the sweet bar, something I've really come to enjoy on long days. And this is what I'm hoping to go for setup wise. I'm going to go through my stuff and see how it works out and if I could pull it off. Swift Industries Zeitgeist on the front, which I'm hoping will contain the bulk of my clothing. I've got a Swift frame bag in the center, which I'll probably end up putting my tools, snacks, wallet, a bike lock, the stuff that I want quick access to. I do like the Zeitgeist has these side pockets, so I often use that for that same kind of thing. And right now what I have on the back is the Catalyst, a much smaller bag. So for the actual like events and just like bike riding on the trail, I'll just have the frame bag in this, and then I'll put this on the Zeitgeist when we actually go out on the bike tour. I'm not sure if this is going to work out space-wise. I might end up putting my second Zeitgeist on the back if I have to. I did pull the rack off the bike, which I, over the summer, used panniers and all that stuff for the camping gear. I picked up this phrase that a lot of you know from my buddy Dylan, nature abhors a vacuum. And I was feeling like if I went with the rack and the two panniers, I was just going to end up overpacking. And I'm not a weight weenie by any means. On a trip with 20,000 feet of elevation, I do want to try and keep it to a minimal and just not throw everything in here for the sake of throwing everything in here. That being said, I do want the stuff I need to be comfortable, to be able to be warm, to be reasonably dry, the next day. So that's what I'm grappling with, is how many layers of almost all wool stuff is what I'm packing to bring. The other thing with the space on the bike that I'm thinking about is not only to carry the stuff I need, but also, get warm throughout the day. I need room to take layers off and put them in the bike. There's a couple days where we're going to be lean on stops. So we will need to be carrying some food more so than we usually do on our summer trips. So I do need to think about that space. And then as always, I'm just someone who's going to want to have my camera on my back. I can't imagine riding through this area in the fall and not having an actual camera. So I do need to think about, if it's raining, I need to get it into a waterproof bag and into one of my bags. That's another consideration for having enough space. Two things I'm doing for extra storage if this system here does work out for me. I've got the Model Infinity tools on the front here, on the top of the Zeitgeist. So when this is packed full, this will be reasonably rigid. So if I do need to take a grocery bag full of food and stick it through there and strap it down, that'll work. The other thing is the thing that I always do on bike tours, which is a musette bag. I don't want to be riding all day with this on my back. I'm someone who hates to ride with stuff on my person. I don't use hip bags. I don't like to use shoulder bags unless I'm carrying cameras to a photo gig. A lot of times that's the last couple miles type thing that works for me. So always do that. I might even bring I have a nicer one, a Bags by Bird one, that's probably got a decent amount of water resistance. I think it's made of X-Pack, and it also has a second strap so it doesn't swing around on you. So I'm thinking that even though that takes up a little more space, that might be the way to go for this trip. So it's like I'm packing for two different things, really. So the first 4 nights, so the TP, I've got in here my sleeping bag, my down blanket, a couple sleeping pads to put underneath me, and the pillows and stuff like that. I put it in this kind of military bag because at Nutmeg, we actually have to get a little bit of distance to where the lean-tos are. So I need to be able to throw that over my shoulder and ride up a kind of gnarly hill to get to the lean-tos. So that should work. This is a power bank thing from Graycell. They sent it over for me to review. It's got 3 ports to charge. I actually wish it had a little more, but one of the cool features that I think will be a benefit in the lean-to will be it's got this nice light that you could pull out and use. This is 48,000 milliamps. So a lot of power there. That obviously will not come on my bike with me when I go on the bike tour. I will still bring a couple power banks just in case, and then, the wall plugs and stuff like that to keep things charged. My down jacket I'm going to have for Nutmeg. I don't think I'm going to bring that on the road with me, as much as I feel like in the evening it might be nice to throw on if you had a cold day and we're walking to a restaurant. I think it's a waste of space because it's actually too warm for me to actually ride in. Even down into like the high 20s, I can only ride with it for like a mile or two on. So I think it's kind of a waste of space. Another thing that'll go with me to Nutmeg will be a pair of jeans. I'll probably ride the day in those, and I'll be wearing them, leading up until we go on the bike tour. But I won't wear jeans on a wet bike tour because obviously wet jeans would be the worst. And I'm not really someone who has any kind of riding pants. So my plan is going to be on the tour just to be wearing shorts with wool tights. I really like these wool tights from Smart Wool. They have what they called some kind of 3D weave or something. Ben and I rode a real wet credit card tour of Connecticut after the first or second year we ever did Nutmeg. I think it was the first year. And when they got soaked, they still maintain keeping you warm, and then they just don't feel like they're so stuck to your legs. So I have 2 pairs of those, and then these are Thermowave. They sent these over, and I actually have a link to their stuff. I really like it, but these are more traditional, like just single wool tights. So I'm trying to decide, do I just bring 2 and rotate them every day? Do I need 3 in case one's wet and 2 are drying? What's the space? Same thing, wool shirts. Some are Thermowave, some I haven't decided. I've got a bunch out. I was thinking for having a normal shirt over them, using like actually just these Terry B Sun shirts that are made by Endo Customs. You know, those are more for summer and keeping out of the sun, but they are light and they do dry quick. So I could throw those as the layer over the wool. And then also to keep warmer if it is going to be cold, I think long wool socks, since I won't be wearing actual pants, like to be able to pull the socks up underneath. And then a few shorter ones, I think a few regular riding ones, and then a few thin wool socks, and then a few pairs of wool boxers. I'm also like, what am I going to sleep in? So cotton t-shirts, you know, I don't have those out here yet. Here's a towel, always nice to have a towel on the road. And then I think what I'm going to bring, instead of, like I said, not bringing the down jacket for the actual tour part of the trip, is this is a chrome vest. This is a really nice thing to throw on for an extra layer. It does pack up pretty small, so I think that might be the way to go as well. And then I'm going to do 2 pairs of wool gloves. One, if it is really cold in the morning, what I basically do in the winter, I'll double those up anyways. But also the idea that one pair gets wet, the next day I could start with a dry pair on. Just see to some waterproof bags. The bags on my bike are not completely waterproof. Those will be nice to keep my clothes that I haven't worn yet dry. Another thing I'm going to try on this trip is, instead of the rain jacket, doing the rain cape. I've talked about it a couple times on the channel, and people have really positive reviews of the rain cape idea because it kind of can blanket over you. There's thumb loops, keep you more dry, and the combination with having this bike fendered, I think will work. People have talked about how it's better for temperature regulation because you do get that airflow under, and it's not like a rain jacket, which I always just find to be too warm, even in pretty chilly conditions. So I'm going to try that again. I did use it at a spring event called Gunk's Not Dead. And in the morning when we left, I think it was 40s and rainy. And for a while, I actually did like it and started to get used to the way that it feels on you and stuff like that, because it is different to wear a cape and have your hands in a loop. As it warmed up and even got, I think, into the mid 50s or upper 50s, I still found it too warm and took it off and just decided I preferred to be wet, which is kind of, in the summer, was always what I prefer. I don't bother with rain gear at all in the summer. This is going to be a little different, so trying to stay dry for a while, I think it's going to matter, and I'm hoping that this is the trip where that really comes in handy. So that's clever hood, but it's something I ordered with my own money. So I'm really excited for this trip again. Nutmeg is so fun, and now that I think this will be our 5th, we've just made so many friends over the years from going, so it's like a reunion, and I can't wait to be hanging out and talking to everybody, either in the big lodge with the party and our buddy Peter DJing, or out on the trail at the brewery on the way where we stop for lunch and all that stuff. I know so many people that go there now, and so many people who have, from meeting them there, have found the channel instead of the vice versa thing. If we're someone we haven't met yet and you're going to be there, make sure you come up and say hi if we have a chance. I have a few errands to run and I have some work to finish up today, and I'm going to take a break from dealing with this. But when I get back, I'm going to try and get the bike set up with and make all the decisions on what I'm going to need for the bike tour part of that. Hello, Edmund. You have cobwebs all over your face, Edmund. So I will show you and I will tell you about that. It's one of the things with my channel. Like I said, I don't pretend to always be an expert on everything. I'm always trying to figure things out. I feel like these kind of videos could be helpful for other people. I do hate that, like I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the video, how it just seems like there's such pretension and know-it-all element in so much of cycling and so much of cycling YouTube. Like my tubeless video showing that, hey, I tried to set them up tubeless and I failed and I went to the bike shop. That's just the way things go. And also, as I always like to say, there's this whole thing of going on a bike tour and trying to be as extremely minimal as possible and the skinniest tires and roughing it the most. Well, no one comes out of the woodwork and gives you a medal for roughing it the most. You know, if you want to go on vacation and be comfortable, go on vacation and be comfortable. This one's going to be a mixed bag, I think. But yeah, we'll find out. And I don't know. Like I said, hopefully this helps some of you out. It is the next day. I did attempt to load up the bike, and I feel like it did work with the setup I was looking at, the Catalyst, the Zeitgeist. And what I had done is I had taken some of my dry bags and kind of used them a little bit as compression sacks to, put the clothes in. As you can see, I still kind of got them folded here and all that. And then I realized as I was riding my bike yesterday, doing my work, why, when I just straight up said I don't like riding with stuff on my person, would I not just put the other Zeitgeist on the bike and have the extra space? So that is going to be my plan. So I'm going to run with 2 Zeitgeists instead of the smaller bag in the back. It's not like the bag weight makes that big of a difference. And if I could already fit what I wanted in there, then I know I have room for my camera. I know I have room for extra food and anything else that may come up on the way. The thing I was thinking about packing is I do need to have an idea of what I'm bringing. But we're not actually loading up the bike for the tour until Sunday, and I'm leaving on a Thursday. So those decisions could be made when I do a final weather check from the rustic cabin we're in on Sunday night, and just making sure, like, you know, if stuff from Nutmeg got wet, that's not coming with me. I can decide on the shoes and the amount of socks and all that. So just actually overpacking for the car part of the tour, so I have more options when we hit the road. So instead of actually showing, like I said I was going to do, what my final decisions were, I think it makes way more sense to leave this to be a to be continued, and then explain what worked, and if unfortunately something goes wrong on the bike tour, what happened. That'll be coming. That'll be, you know, a good week and a half out, as I'm going to be gone all of next week and stuff like that. Thanks as always for watching, and get subscribed if you're not already, so you could see these upcoming videos. There'll probably be 3, I would think. The first day when we do a trail ride, the whole Nutmeg experience, and then the bike tour. So I will see you then. Peace.